Our lead story is from India, and how could it not be? India is celebrating its Republic Day today, its 74th, like I just told you. On this day in 1950, the Indian Constitution came into force. Every year it is celebrated with a grand parade. It showcases India's strength, its military strength, its cultural strength, its diversity. We'll start with what's different this time. This Republic Day had many firsts, starting with the location. The parade took place on Kartavya Path in New Delhi. Kartavya Path means the path of duty. This is a revamped ceremonial boulevard. Prime Minister Modi unveiled it last year, and it marks a major turning point for India. You see, this stretch of the road in the heart of New Delhi was initially called Kingsway. After independence, it came to be known as Rajpath, a literal translation of Kingsway and a symbol of colonial rule. Now, with this shift to Kartavya Path, India is shedding baggage from the past. Another first, Russian tanks were not part of this parade. It has never happened before because Russia has been a key source of our weapons. So that's what we showcase. But this time, Indian weapons were on display, like the Akash missile system, the BrahMos missile, the 105 mm field guns, the K9 Vajra howitzers, the Nag anti-tank guided missiles, the main battle tank Arjun, and quick reaction fighting vehicles. All of this defense equipment is made in India. Another first, the participation of Agniveers. 6 of them took part in the parade this year. Who are the Agniveers? They are part of Agnipath, a new military recruitment scheme. Under the scheme, around 45,000 soldiers will be recruited every year. They will serve in the armed forces for 4 years. After that period, 75% of them will leave, 25% will be retained and given permanent commission. Then we come to the Rafale aircraft. They were part of the parade, although not for the first time. A quarter of the fleet, 9 aircraft in total, took to the skies today. And of course, the tableaus. There were 23 this year, 17 from states and union territories and 6 from various ministries of the Indian government. They covered key themes, 3 key themes: the cultural heritage of India, India's economic progress, and national security. And the centerpiece was the one from Haryana, with scenes from the Mahabharata. It featured Lord Krishna in his Virat Swaroop, or universal form. And it's an interesting addition because our strategic culture draws heavily from the Mahabharata. We believe in dialogue, show patience, do not start a war, but when the need arises, use the Sudarshan Chakra. In fact, tonight I want to tell you a story. Once upon a time, there was a king. Yes, it's that kind of a story. The king was called Raja Bhoj. He found a throne that belonged to King Vikramaditya. It was made of gold with 32 wooden statues. The king, Raja Bhoj, wanted to sit on the throne, but he couldn't. Every time he tried, a statue came to life. One of those 32 statues, it came to life, and it stopped the king from sitting. The statue then asked him to listen to a story of the glory of King Vikramaditya. Every time there was a different story, but every story ended with the same question: are you worthy enough to sit on the throne of the great King Vikramaditya? And every time Raja Bhoj had the same answer: no, I'm not worthy of sitting on this throne. This happened repeatedly. The statues were impressed. They liked the humility of Raja Bhoj, so they blessed him. They let him sit on the throne of King Vikramaditya. This is a fable from the 11th century. It is called Singhasan Battisi. Singhasan means throne, Battis is 32. The title means 32 Tales of the Throne. And this wasn't just a storybook. This was a book of guidelines, a book of laws, if you like. Why am I telling you about this today? Because as we celebrate our Republic Day, the day our Constitution came into force, it is important to know that books of laws or constitutions existed in ancient India. And while we may think that a constitution or a republic is a modern construct, a modern concept imported from the West, something like this existed in ancient India. Our history, in fact, is full of such stories and texts. Centuries ago, the concept of democracy existed in India. Prime Minister Modi has called India the mother of democracies.
भारत मदर ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी है और हमने भी और बिहार वासियों ने तो खास दुनिया में डंका बजाते रहना चाहिए कि वी आर अ मदर ऑफ डेमोक्रेसी.
Today, as we celebrate modern India's 74th Republic Day, I want to talk about books of laws and constitutions from our ancient past, as far back as the Vedic period. They had institutions like central assemblies to check the powers of the king. Books like the Rig Veda and Chandogya Upanishad talk about them. These assemblies had two houses, the Samiti representing the whole tribe and the Sabha with distinguished members, a bit like the upper and lower houses of parliament today. The Mahabharata refers to Ganaraja, meaning the rule of the republic. Now, we usually think of Greece as the birthplace of modern democracy, but even Greek records talk about republics in ancient India. Greek historian Diodorus Siculus has a very interesting account. He wrote about Alexander's invasion of India, 326 BC. Siculus said northwest India had republics that challenged Alexander's army. Perhaps the oldest book of laws in India is the Arthashastra, believed to have been written in the 4th century BC. The author was Kautilya, also known as Chanakya. He wrote about all aspects of governance and defined the 7 elements of a state. Then there was a Dharmashastra written around 600 BC, according to some accounts. It talks about the 4 different stages of a lawsuit. You file a complaint, the defendant responds, the jury deliberates, and finally the judge speaks, a lot like a modern-day court hearing. India was practicing all of this centuries ago. Then we have the Brihaspati Smriti. It talks about the hierarchy of courts, amazingly similar to modern-day legal systems. At the lowest level was the family arbitrator. Stage 2, a court with a judge. Stage 3, the court with the chief justice. And right at the top, the king's court. And the king was not the sole decision maker. He had counselors and judges. Their role is best described by Katyayana, a Sanskrit scholar, mathematician and priest. This is what he said: if the king wants to inflict upon the litigants an illegal or unrighteous decision, it is the duty of the judge to warn the king and prevent him. When the judge realizes that the king has deviated from equity and justice, his duty is not to please the king. For this is no occasion for soft speech. If the judge fails in his duty, he is guilty. All of this was practiced in India ages ago. In the centuries that followed, India was colonized. And after it won freedom, it wrote a new book of laws, a constitution. The year was 1949, and it was nothing short of a miracle. For a country as diverse as ours, with 88% of the population illiterate, it was a very big deal to write a constitution, and that too, the world's largest, 145,000 words. For perspective, the US Constitution has 4,400 words. The Indian one has 1,45,000. And this was just the first version. It has been amended 100 times. It has grown bigger each time. The book is divided into articles and schedules. Articles spell out a law. Schedules give supplementary information, a bit like an appendix in a book. So why is our law book so big? Because we have a big, diverse country.
Our difficulty is how to make the heterogeneous mess that we have today take a decision in common and march in a cooperative way on that road which is bound to lead us to unity.
This was B.R. Ambedkar addressing the Constituent Assembly. What is the Constituent Assembly? The people who drafted the Constitution. And let me say this again, this was an extraordinary experiment. Today, diversity is a corporate buzzword. India aced it more than 70 years ago. This group that wrote the Constitution had 389 members from all parts of India. Then partition happened. Some went to Pakistan. 299 were left. They took 3 years to write the book. The original copies were not typed or printed. They were handwritten by a calligrapher called Prem Bihari Narayan Raizada. He wrote in English and Hindi, and he did it for free. What he wanted was his place in history. He wanted his name on each page of India's Constitution and his grandfather's name on the last page. The book he created was a piece of art. The pages were bound in black leather, embossed with patterns of gold. Each page was decorated by artists from Shanti Niketan, led by a man called Nandlal Bose. They depicted stories from Indian history, like the Indus Valley civilization, the struggle for independence, the Vedic period, a scene from the Mahabharata showing a discussion between Arjuna and Lord Krishna. The section on fundamental rights has a sketch of Lord Ram, Sita and Lakshman returning from the Battle of Lanka. All of this is in our Constitution. It features Emperor Ashok talking about Buddhism, Lakshmi Bai, Akbar, Maratha ruler Shivaji, and Guru Gobind Singh, the 10th Sikh Guru. The laws in the book came from different sources, from at least 10 different countries. Principles like single citizenship, the cabinet, parliamentary system, they came from Britain. Fundamental rights, impeachment, independent judiciary came from the US. Concurrent list from Australia, directive principles from Ireland, federalism from Canada, fundamental duties from Russia, then USSR, and concepts of liberty, equality and fraternity came from France. Imagine undertaking a task like this, curating ideas from around the globe, tailoring them to the needs of India and building consensus in such a diverse group. I say it again, it was a miracle of sorts. 7 decades have passed, the world has changed, India has changed, it has made long strides. Today our constitution is criticized for its length and for how complicated the text is. Well, some criticisms are valid, but when you look at the context, how this text came into being and how it stood the test of time, you're awed by the story of this book. And when you rewind further, you realize that our present constitution is not our first. We've had books of laws and republics and democratic institutions long before we started looking west for inspiration. Lots of food for thought for a Thursday. Let me take you back to the Republic Day parade. Like I said, it showcases India's strength, military, cultural, civilizational. And in line with this, Nari Shakti, or the power of women, was on full display today. Again, it was a day of firsts. Here's a report. A 21-gun salute by the indigenous 105mm Indian field guns welcomed President Draupadi Murmu as she arrived at the Kartavya Path along with Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Egypt's President and Chief Guest Abdel Fattah al-Sisi.
Safe and secure.
These made-in-India guns replace the Army's 25-pounder guns from the British era, which have been used so far for the ceremonial gun salute. For the first time ever, women constables featured in the Border Security Forces Camel Band, which has been a part of Republic Day celebrations since 1976. 12 Mahila Praharis from Gujarat, Rajasthan, Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh and Maharashtra made their debut. President Draupadi Murmu took a salute from an all-women contingent of the Central Reserve Police Force, the CRPF, India's largest paramilitary force with over 3 lakh personnel in its ranks. This was part of the Modi government's Nari Shakti, or Women Empowerment theme for this year's Republic Day.
The motto of the CRPF.
A women aircrew of Dornier aircraft was part of the Indian Navy tableau, putting the spotlight on an all-women crew surveillance sortie, which was undertaken last year. 29-year-old Lieutenant Commander Disha Amrit, a naval air operations officer, led the Navy's marching contingent.
नौसेना का मार्चिंग कंटिंजेंट लेफ्टिनेंट कमांडर दिशा अमृत के नेतृत्व में.
And now, following our guest contingent.
And the parade started with this.
Serving active horse cavalry regiment in the world.
The first contingent in the uniform of the 61st Cavalry, led by Captain Raizada Shaurya Bali. The 61st Cavalry Regiment is one of the largest and one of the last operational unmechanized horse-mounted cavalry units in the world. So that was the parade. Now let's talk about the chief guest. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, the first leader from Egypt ever to grace this occasion. Why was he invited as a chief guest? How is the chief guest chosen? And why is this one significant? In the next few minutes, we'll discuss, first of all, why the Egyptian president? Well, for multiple reasons. The most obvious one is to deepen ties. Last year, Egypt and India celebrated 75 years of diplomatic relations. Egypt is one of India's oldest friends. It recognized India's independence within 3 days. India, as you would know, became independent on the 15th of August 1947, and Egypt recognized India on the 18th. Both countries are founding members of NAM, the Non-Aligned Movement. That period was the heyday. The friendship between Nehru and Nasser is legendary. But after that, India and Egypt drifted apart. Now Prime Minister Modi and President Sisi are attempting a revival. During this visit, India and Egypt have elevated their ties. Both countries are now strategic partners. And the case for deepening ties with Egypt is a compelling one. Egypt links Africa and West Asia, so it is an important trade gateway. The Suez Canal in Egypt is a major transit hub for Indian cargo. Beyond trade, there is defense. Egypt's military is the biggest in the region. Both sides are stepping up bilateral military drills. And Cairo has shown interest in Indian arms like the Tejas fighter jets, the Dhruv light attack helicopters, even the BrahMos missile. This year's Republic Day featured the Egyptian Armed Forces. The contingent had 180 personnel. President Sisi himself is a military man. He retired as a general in 2014. He has also held key defense portfolios. He served as the defense minister and as director of military intelligence. So defense cooperation is going to be important. But there is strategic convergence too. India is expanding its ties in West Asia. Prime Minister Modi has put his weight behind this project, and Egypt, with its growing profile in the region, will be a key partner. Last year, both sides added a new dimension to this partnership: food security. India is now a key supplier of wheat to Egypt. Last year, Cairo lifted an old tax barrier. The war in Ukraine threatened Egypt's food security. Supplies were disrupted, and India was quick to help. Long story short, there's a lot going for this partnership, and that explains why President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is the chief guest. Now to the second question. How do we pick a Republic Day chief guest? The process is elaborate. It begins at least 6 months before the event. India's Ministry of External Affairs prepares the list of potential invitees. The names are cleared at the highest level by Prime Minister and the President of India. But why a list? Why not just choose a name? Because of availability. A potential chief guest could have a packed schedule. They may not be able to turn up. When the list is ready, Indian ambassadors abroad begin their work. They make inquiries, and once they have a confirmation, New Delhi announces the name of the chief guest. That is the procedure. In terms of protocol, it is the highest honor extended by India to a foreign leader to be invited as a Republic Day chief guest. It is the ultimate sign of friendship with India. And in the last few decades, several world leaders have graced this occasion. Our next report recaps some of the prominent names.